All right, so let's take a look at Harmony Biosciences Q3 2024 earnings call.
Yeah.
They had a pretty big day on the market, up 16%. So we wanted to dive in
Sure.
and try to figure out what's got everybody so excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just their narcolepsy drug walkies, though it's certainly performing well. They pulled in $186 million this quarter, and you've got to remember, this company's only 7 years old.
That's incredible.
And they've already crossed the $2 billion mark in total net revenue.
Okay.
Since Walkex launched, which is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely eye-catching, especially in such a competitive market.
Right.
But you're right. The stock jump suggests there's more to the story here.
Yeah.
What do you think has investors so excited, so buzzing?
I think it's their late-stage pipeline. They've laid out a very ambitious plan, aiming to launch a new product or indication every year for the next 5 years. That's a pretty bold statement, and it signals that they're looking to be a major player in several therapeutic areas.
Okay, so let's break down this pipeline and see what they're working with.
Sure.
You mentioned that they're going deep into sleep-wake disorders.
Yeah.
What's beyond Walkex in that area?
So they're looking to expand Walkex reach. They're planning to submit an sNDA for pitolisant.
Okay.
And that's the active ingredient in Walkex.
Right.
For idiopathic hypersomnia, or IH.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really smart move because IH has very limited treatment options right now.
Yeah.
If they can secure approval, they're going to be tapping into a market with a very significant unmet need.
So they're leveraging their existing success with Walkex to target a new patient population. That's a classic growth strategy.
Exactly.
But they're not stopping there, are they?
No, not at all. They're also developing what they call next-gen formulations of pitolisant. One is a gastro-resistant version, which is designed to address the GI side effects that can be a problem for some patients. The other is a high-dose version, and that specifically targets fatigue, a major issue for many people with narcolepsy.
That's interesting. If they can improve the tolerability of Walkex and offer a more effective treatment for fatigue, they could really increase the drug's appeal.
Absolutely. And they're not even limiting themselves to just refining pitolisant.
Okay.
They're working on a potentially best-in-class Orexin 2 agonist.
Wow.
Which is a completely new type of sleep-wake drug. This one could be a game changer if it lives up to its potential.
No, that's interesting. We'll definitely have to dive deeper into that a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Harmony isn't putting all their eggs in the sleep-wake basket.
Right.
What other areas are they exploring?
So they're making a big push into the rare epilepsy space. They recently acquired Epigenics Therapeutics, and that deal brought them 2 promising drugs for developmental epileptic encephalopathies, or DEEs. These are severe childhood epilepsies that are notoriously difficult to treat.
So they're strategically expanding into a new therapeutic area.
Exactly.
With a high unmet need.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about these 2 drugs?
So one is EPX-100.
Okay.
And that's already in a phase 3 trial for Dravet syndrome, which is a particularly challenging form of DEE.
Right.
They're expecting top-line data from that trial in 2026.
Okay.
They're also initiating a phase 3 trial for Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, another type of DEE, by the end of this year.
Okay.
So they're moving very aggressively in this space.
Sounds like they're not wasting any time. What about the other drug they acquired?
Right.
EPX-200.
So that one's in the pre-IND stage, so it's a little bit earlier in the development process.
Okay.
But it also shows promise for treating DEEs.
Gotcha.
They're clearly committed to building a strong presence in this area.
So we've got Walkex performing well.
Right.
A robust pipeline targeting sleep-wake disorders.
Yeah.
And a strategic move into rare epilepsies.
Yep.
With all this activity, I'm guessing they need deep pockets to fund their ambitions.
Mm-hmm.
How's their financial situation looking?
They're actually in a very strong financial position. They reported $70.5 million in cash flow this quarter.
Wow.
And have over $500 million in cash equivalents and investments on hand. Plus, they're profitable.
That's a really good sign.
Yeah.
It means they have the resources to advance their pipeline and potentially make further acquisitions.
Exactly.
To bolster their portfolio.
And during the call, they hinted that they're actively looking for additional acquisition targets.
Okay.
So they're definitely on the hunt for opportunities to expand even further.
It's clear that they're playing the long game here, building a diverse portfolio to drive sustainable growth.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I want to make sure we cover all the bases. You mentioned that they're also working on treatment for Fragile X syndrome.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that program?
Sure. So they have a drug called ZYN002 in phase 3 trials for Fragile X syndrome, which is a genetic condition that causes intellectual disability and a range of behavioral challenges.
And that's another area with a significant unmet need.
Right.
There are currently no approved treatments for Fragile X.
Exactly. And that's why this program is so important. They're expecting top-line data from the trial in mid-2025. If it's successful, ZYN002 could be the first approved therapy for Fragile X, which would be a major breakthrough.
Sounds like they're targeting some really high-impact areas with their pipeline.
They are, and with their strong financial position and their experienced leadership team, they're very well positioned to make a real difference in these therapeutic areas.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this initial overview. We've seen that Harmony Biosciences is more than just Walkex. Their pipeline is diverse and ambitious, targeting these major unmet needs in sleep-wake disorders, rare epilepsies, and Fragile X syndrome.
Exactly.
But to really understand the potential of these programs, I think we need to dig a little deeper.
I agree. I think let's delve into the science behind these therapies and see what makes them so intriguing.
Sounds good. Let's start with their efforts in the sleep-wake space.
Sure.
They mentioned developing a best-in-class Orexin 2 agonist. What exactly are orexins, and why are they so important for sleep regulation?
Orexins, also known as hypocretins, are neuropeptides.
Okay.
Think of them as tiny messengers in the brain, and they play a vital role in regulating our sleep-wake cycle, helping to keep us alert and awake during the day.
So if someone has narcolepsy, where they experience excessive daytime sleepiness, could that be linked to problems with their orexin system?
You hit the nail on the head. Research has shown that many cases of narcolepsy are associated with a deficiency of orexins.
Okay.
So essentially, the brain isn't producing enough of these wake-up signals.
That makes sense. Yeah. So Orexin 2 agonists are designed to step in and provide those missing wake-up signals.
Exactly. They mimic the actions of orexins, promoting wakefulness and alertness. What's really interesting is that this is a very different approach compared to traditional stimulants that are used to treat narcolepsy, like amphetamines.
So instead of just trying to mask the sleepiness with stimulants, they're actually targeting the underlying cause.
Exactly.
That seems like a much more targeted approach.
And because Orexin 2 agonists work on a different pathway than stimulants, they may have a lower risk of certain side effects, like addiction or cardiovascular problems.
That'd be a huge advantage for patients. But there are already some Orexin 2 agonists on the market. What makes Harmony's drug, BP1.15205, potentially better?
So what really caught my eye was their emphasis on potency during the call. They're claiming that BP1.15205 is significantly more potent than existing Orexin 2 agonists based on preclinical data.
Okay, but why is potency so important in this case?
Well, higher potency means you can achieve the desired therapeutic effect with a lower dose, which can lead to fewer side effects and better tolerability.
So it's not just about brute force, it's about precision.
Exactly. And in addition to its high potency, BP1.15205 also shows excellent selectivity for the orexin 2 receptor. This means it's less likely to interact with other receptors in the brain and cause unintended effects.
That's reassuring. So they're aiming for a more targeted and precise approach to modulating the orexin system.
Exactly.
But they're still in preclinical studies, right?
Yes.
Have they shared any data on how effective this drug is?
They presented some preclinical data that suggests that BP1.15205 is effective in promoting wakefulness and reducing sleepiness in animal models.
That's encouraging, but of course they'll need to confirm those findings in human clinical trials.
Of course.
But it definitely sounds like a program worth watching.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about their work in rare epilepsies.
Sure.
Specifically DEs. You mentioned they're developing two drugs, EPX-100 and EPX-200, for these conditions.
Yes.
I'm curious to know more about GEEs and the challenges involved in treating them.
Yeah, so DEEs are a group of severe childhood epilepsies that often cause frequent and debilitating seizures.
Right.
They're incredibly challenging to manage, and existing treatments are often ineffective.
Wow.
Or come with significant side effects.
So there's a huge need for new and better treatment options.
Absolutely.
What's Harmony's approach here?
So both of their drugs target the serotonin system, which plays a complex role in brain function, including seizure control. However, they take slightly different approaches.
Okay, let's break that down. First, tell us about EPX-100. What makes it unique?
So EPX-100 is a broader 5-HT2 receptor agonist.
Okay.
So in simpler terms, it activates a specific type of serotonin receptor in the brain.
Okay.
And this approach seems to be effective in some forms of DEEs, like Dravet syndrome. They highlighted a zebrafish model where EPX-100 showed promise in reducing seizure activity.
A zebrafish model. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so it's a preclinical model that's used to study epilepsy.
Gotcha.
Essentially, they induce seizures in zebrafish larvae, and then they test different drugs to see if they can suppress those seizures.
So it's a way to screen potential drug candidates and see if they have anti-seizure effects before moving to human trials.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that they claim that this zebrafish model has a 100% positive predictive value for EPX-100.
Wow.
So this means that every drug that worked in the zebrafish model has also shown efficacy in humans.
Wow.
Now, of course, preclinical models don't always translate perfectly to human trials.
Right.
But it's still a very encouraging sign.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the optimism around EPX-100. But what about EPX-200? How does it differ from EPX-100?
So while EPX-100 is a broader 5-HT2 receptor agonist, EPX-200 is a little more selective. It specifically targets the 5-HT2C receptor, a subtype of serotonin receptor.
And why is that selectivity important?
So by honing in on a specific receptor subtype, they hope to fine-tune the drug's effects and potentially reduce off-target side effects that might occur with a broader approach.
So it's like they're using a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer.
Exactly.
But EPX-200 is still in the pre-IND stage, right?
That's right. It's earlier in the development process, but they've presented some promising preclinical data and even some case studies in humans.
Wow.
That suggests it could be a viable treatment option for DEs.
This is all very interesting. Yeah. But before we get too carried away, let's remember that we're dealing with early stage programs here.
Of course.
What are some of the challenges or risks that Harmony faces as they try to bring these drugs to market?
Well, I mean, clinical trials are inherently risky.
Right.
There's always a chance that a drug that looks promising in early studies will fail in later stages of development. Yeah. With such an ambitious pipeline, Harmony is exposed to that risk multiple times over.
That's a good point. What other hurdles might they encounter?
Well, even if these drugs prove to be safe and effective in clinical trials, they'll still need to navigate the complex regulatory landscape and secure approval from the FDA. Right. And then there's the challenge of pricing and reimbursement, especially in rare disease areas where therapies can be very expensive.
Right. Convincing insurance companies to cover the costs of these new treatments will be crucial for their commercial success. Right. They'll also be facing competition from other companies developing treatments for the same conditions.
Absolutely. The rare disease space is becoming increasingly crowded.
Right.
So they'll need to differentiate their therapies and demonstrate a very clear clinical benefit.
So there's a lot of work ahead, but they seem to have a solid strategy.
Yeah.
And the resources to execute it. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more aspect of their pipeline, their program for Fragile X syndrome. Uh-huh. Can you give us a brief overview of this condition and how their drug, ZYN002, is designed to work?
So Fragile X syndrome is the most common inherited form of intellectual disability.
Okay.
And it's caused by a mutation in the FMR1 gene, which is located on the X chromosome.
Okay.
This gene is responsible for making a protein called FMRP.
Yep.
That's crucial for brain development and function.
So if there's a mutation in this gene, it means the body can't produce enough FMRP, which then leads to developmental problems.
Exactly. And the severity of those problems can vary widely depending on the extent of the mutation.
Okay.
Some individuals with Fragile X may have mild learning disabilities, while others may have more severe intellectual disabilities, as well as behavioral and social challenges.
So it's a spectrum disorder like autism.
Right.
And there are currently no approved treatments that can cure Fragile X or address the underlying genetic defect, right?
So yeah, that's pretty okay. Current treatment approaches focus on managing symptoms and improving quality of life through therapies like speech therapy, occupational therapy, and behavioral interventions.
So that's where ZYN002 comes in.
Exactly.
Tell us more about how it works and what makes it unique.
So ZYN002 is a synthetic cannabidiol, or CBD, formulated as a gel that's applied to the skin. Okay. So it's designed for transdermal delivery, meaning the CBD is absorbed through the skin and enters the bloodstream.
Okay, so why choose transdermal delivery over a more traditional route, like an oral pill?
So transdermal delivery offers some advantages. It can provide more consistent drug levels in the body, potentially reduce side effects, and improve patient compliance, especially for individuals who have difficulty swallowing pills. This is particularly important when you're dealing with a population that may have developmental or behavioral challenge.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does CBD work in the context of Fragile X?
So while the exact mechanisms are still being investigated, preclinical studies suggest that CBD can modulate several pathways in the brain that are disrupted in Fragile X. It's not directly targeting the FMR1 gene or the FMRP protein, but it's working downstream to influence brain development and function.
So it's like a roundabout way of compensating for the lack of FMRP.
You could think of it that way. So CBD interacts with the endocannabinoid system, a complex network of receptors and neurotransmitters in the brain that's involved in regulating various physiological processes, including mood, pain, and inflammation.
And I'm guessing this system also plays a role in brain development and the formation of connections between neurons.
You got it. And that's crucial because we know that FMRP is essential for those processes, which are often disrupted in Fragile X.
So the idea is that CBD, by interacting with the endocannabinoid system, can help to improve brain function in individuals with Fragile X.
That's the hypothesis. And there's some preclinical evidence to support it. Studies in animal models of Fragile X have shown that CBD can improve cognitive function, reduce anxiety, and even reverse some of the structural abnormalities in the brain associated with the condition.
That's incredibly promising.
Yeah.
But what about human studies?
Yeah.
Has ZYN002 been tested in people with Fragile X?
Yes. They've completed a phase 2 trial in adolescents and young adults with Fragile X, and the results were encouraging. They found that ZYN002 was safe and well tolerated, and they saw significant improvements in several key areas, including anxiety, social avoidance, and hyperactivity.
So it's not just about improving cognitive function. It's also about addressing the behavioral and social challenges.
Exactly.
Can be incredibly difficult for individuals with Fragile X and their families.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what makes this program so potentially impactful.
So now they're in phase 3 trials, right?
They are. They're conducting a pivotal phase 3 trial called Reconnect.
Okay.
Which is enrolling approximately 200 individuals with Fragile X. They're evaluating the efficacy and safety of ZYN002 compared to a placebo.
And when can we expect to see results from this trial?
So they're expecting top-line data in mid-2025. If the results are positive, it could be a game changer, paving the way for ZYN002 to become the first approved treatment for Fragile X syndrome.
That would be a tremendous achievement.
Yeah.
But clinical trials are always unpredictable.
Right.
What are some of the challenges or uncertainties that Harmony faces with this program?
Well, Fragile X is a very complex disorder.
Okay.
It's heterogeneous, meaning there's a wide range of symptom severity and individual responses to treatment. That can make it difficult to design clinical trials that accurately capture the drug's effects.
So they need to make sure that they're enrolling the right patients and using the most appropriate measures to assess how well the drug is working.
Exactly. And they also need to demonstrate that ZYN002 provides meaningful benefits that outweigh any potential risks or side effects, especially since we're talking about a vulnerable population.
Safety is paramount, especially when you're dealing with children and adolescents.
Absolutely. And there are also questions about the long-term effects of CBD use, particularly in developing brains.
Yeah.
So they'll need to conduct thorough safety monitoring throughout the trial and follow patients for an extended period to assess any potential long-term risks.
So it's a challenging undertaking, but one with the potential to make a real difference in the lives of individuals with Fragile X and their families.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It really highlights Harmony's commitment to addressing unmet needs in challenging therapeutic areas.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've seen that Harmony Biosciences is a company with a lot going for it.
Yeah.
A strong financial position, a diverse and ambitious pipeline, and a commitment to innovation. But to really understand the potential of these programs, we need to dig a little deeper into the science.
I agree. Let's dive in.
Where should we start?
Let's go back to those DEEs and really unpack what's happening in the brain that causes these debilitating seizures.
Okay.
I'm particularly interested in the role of serotonin and how Harmony's drugs are trying to modulate the system to achieve seizure control.
That's a great place to start. The serotonin system is incredibly complex and fascinating, and it plays a crucial role in a wide range of brain functions, including mood, sleep, and as you mentioned, seizure control. Let's explore that further.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into Harmony Biosciences. We were just starting to unpack the science behind their approach to treating developmental epileptic encephalopathies, or DEEs.
Yeah, these DEEs are devastating conditions, and the current treatment options are often very limited and come with significant side effects. So I'm really eager to understand how Harmony is trying to tackle these challenges.
Yeah.
You mentioned that both of their drugs in this area, EPX-100 and EPX-200, target the serotonin system.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this system and its role in seizures?
So it's a complex system, but it's fascinating. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that plays a role in many brain functions.
Okay.
From mood and sleep to appetite and learning.
Right.
And it's involved in regulating the electrical activity of neurons, which is what goes haywire during a seizure.
So when we talk about the serotonin system, we're really talking about a network of different serotonin receptors in the brain. Right?
Exactly. And these receptors can have different effects on neuronal activity.
Okay, so some serotonin receptors can actually increase neuronal excitability, making seizures more likely.
That's right.
And others have the opposite effect, inhibiting neuronal activity and making seizures less likely.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance.
It's a delicate balance.
And in DEEs, it seems like this balance is disrupted, leading to an increased susceptibility to seizures.
That's the current thinking. There's evidence that alterations in specific serotonin receptors, like the 5-HT2 receptors, contribute to seizure activity in certain types of DEEs.
Okay, so let's talk about how Harmony's drugs are trying to restore this balance.
Yeah.
You said that EPX-100 is a broader 5-HT2 receptor agonist.
Right.
What does that mean in practical terms?
So it means that EPX-100 activates a range of 5-HT2 receptors promoting their activity.
Okay.
And this broader activation seems to work well in some types of DEEs, like Dravet syndrome, based on the data they've shared so far.
And they pointed to a zebrafish model that showed promising results for EPX-100.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that they're using zebrafish to study epilepsy. What are the advantages of this model?
Zebrafish are a very powerful tool for drug discovery, particularly in neuroscience. They're vertebrates, so their brains share many similarities with our own, but they're also transparent during their larval stage, which allows researchers to directly observe brain activity in real time.
That's incredible. So they can actually watch how a drug affects neuronal activity in a living organism.
Yes, and they can induce seizures in these larvae.
Okay.
And then test different drugs to see if they can suppress those seizures.
Right.
It's a way to quickly screen potential drug candidates and get an early indication of their efficacy.
And they mentioned that the zebrafish model has been highly predictive for EPX 100.
Right, exactly.
That's encouraging, but they also acknowledge that preclinical models don't always translate perfectly
of course.
to human trials.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait for the phase 3 data to see how it performs in people with Dravet syndrome.
Absolutely. But the fact that it's shown such consistent efficacy in this model, it gives them a lot of confidence to move forward. Now remember, EPX 100 is a broader 5-HT2 receptor agonist.
Yeah.
It activates a range of these receptors, but their other drug, EPX 200, takes a more selective approach.
Right. You said that EPX 200 specifically targets the 5-HT2C receptor.
Right.
Why did they decide to focus on this particular subtype?
So by honing in on a specific receptor, they aim to fine-tune the drug's effects.
Okay.
And potentially minimize off-target side effects that might occur with a broader approach.
So they're looking for a more precise way to modulate serotonin signaling, potentially leading to a better safety profile.
And then they presented some early preclinical data that suggests that the selective approach might be effective in treating DEs. But remember, EPX 200 is still in the pre-IND stage, so it has a long way to go before it reaches patients.
It's still early days.
Yeah.
But the potential is there. They're exploring a new avenue for treating DEEs, and that's exciting.
I agree. It highlights their commitment to innovation. They're not just relying on one approach.
Right.
They're exploring multiple pathways to find better treatments for these challenging conditions.
Now before we move on from the topic of DEEs, I want to take a step back.
Sure.
And talk about the bigger picture.
Okay.
We know that serotonin plays a role in seizures.
Right.
But what else is going on in the brain during a seizure?
Yeah.
What causes this sudden surge of electrical activity?
So it's a complex process, and researchers are still unraveling all the details.
Yeah.
But essentially, a seizure occurs when there's a disruption in the normal balance of excitation and inhibition in the brain.
Okay, so we have neurons that send excitatory signals, telling other neurons to fire, and neurons that send inhibitory signals, telling other neurons to quiet down.
Right.
And usually these signals are carefully orchestrated, right?
Exactly. It's like a finely tuned orchestra with different sections playing their parts in harmony.
Yeah.
But during a seizure, something throws off this balance.
Yeah.
It could be an imbalance in neurotransmitters, like we see with serotonin in DEs, or it could be structural abnormalities in the brain, or even external factors like stress or flashing lights.
So it's like the orchestra suddenly goes rogue.
Yeah.
With some sections playing too loudly and others not playing at all.
Right.
And this uncontrolled electrical activity spreads throughout the brain, causing the symptoms of a seizure.
That's a great analogy. And the type of seizure and its severity depend on where in the brain this abnormal activity starts and how widely it spreads.
That makes sense. So Harmony's drugs, by targeting the serotonin system, are essentially trying to restore order to this chaotic orchestra.
In a way, yes. They're attempting to rebalance the excitatory and inhibitory signals, making it less likely for seizures to occur.
And this is a completely different approach compared to many existing anti-seizure medications, which often work by blocking sodium channels or enhancing GABA activity.
That's right. Those medications target different aspects of neuronal signaling.
Right.
But Harmony's approach by focusing on the serotonin system is tapping into a novel pathway for seizure control.
Okay.
It's a new frontier in epilepsy research.
And it's exciting to see a company like Harmony pushing the boundaries and exploring new treatment options for these devastating conditions.
I agree. It's a testament to their commitment to innovation and their focus on unmet medical needs.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground on DEEs and the serotonin system.
Yeah.
But they're also tackling another challenging condition, Fragile X syndrome.
Right.
We touched on it briefly earlier.
Yes.
But let's delve a little deeper into the science behind their approach with ZYN002. This drug is a synthetic form of CBD,
right,
which has been getting a lot of attention lately for its potential therapeutic benefits. But I'm curious to know how it specifically works in the context of Fragile X.
So Fragile X, as you mentioned, is caused by a mutation in the FMR1 gene, which leads to a deficiency of the FMRP protein.
Right.
This protein is crucial for synaptic plasticity, the ability of neurons to form and strengthen connections.
So without enough FMRP, the brain has trouble adapting and learning effectively.
Exactly. And that's thought to be a major contributing factor to the intellectual disabilities and behavioral challenges seen in Fragile X.
So where does CBD come into play? How is it supposed to help?
So while the exact mechanisms are still being investigated, preclinical studies suggest that CBD can modulate several pathways involved in brain development and function that are disrupted in Fragile X.
So it's not directly fixing the genetic defect, but it's trying to work around it by influencing these downstream pathways.
That's the idea. And one of the key pathways that CBD is thought to influence is the endocannabinoid system.
That sounds familiar. Didn't we just talk about this system?
You have a good memory.
Yeah. Yes. The endocannabinoid system is involved in a wide range of physiological processes, including mood, sleep, pain, and importantly for Fragile X, synaptic plasticity.
So by targeting the system, they're hoping to improve the communication between neurons and enhance brain function in individuals with Fragile X.
Precisely. And there's some preclinical evidence to support this hypothesis.
Yeah.
Studies in animal models of Fragile X have shown that CBD can improve cognitive function, reduce anxiety, and even reverse some of the structural abnormalities in the brain associated with the condition.
That's incredibly promising.
Yeah.
But animal models are just the first step. What about human studies? Right. So they've already completed a phase 2 trial of ZYN002 in adolescents and young adults with Fragile X. And the results were encouraging. They found that the drug was safe and well tolerated, which is always the first hurdle. And even more importantly, they saw significant improvements in several key areas, including anxiety, social avoidance, and hyperactivity.
So it's not just about boosting cognitive function. It's also about addressing the behavioral and social challenges that can be so debilitating for individuals with Fragile X and their families.
Exactly. And those aspects of the condition can significantly impact quality of life for both the individuals and their families.
So they're now moving into phase 3 trials to confirm these findings.
Yeah.
In a larger population.
They are. They're currently conducting a pivotal phase 3 trial called Reconnect. Which is enrolling approximately 200 individuals with Fragile X. They're evaluating the efficacy and safety of ZYN002 compared to a placebo.
This is a crucial trial.
Yeah.
If it's successful, ZYN002 could become the first approved treatment for Fragile X syndrome, which would be a monumental achievement.
It would indeed, and it would be a testament to Harmony's commitment to developing innovative therapies for patients with unmet needs. But as we've discussed, clinical trials are inherently unpredictable, and there are always challenges.
What are some of the key challenges they face with this program?
So one challenge is the heterogeneity of Fragile X. As we mentioned earlier, there's a wide range of symptom severity and individual responses to treatment. This can make it difficult to design clinical trials that accurately capture the drug's effects.
So they need to make sure they're enrolling the right patients.
Exactly.
And using the most sensitive outcome measures to assess the drug's impact.
Exactly. They also need to demonstrate that the benefits of ZYN002 outweigh any potential risks, especially when we're talking about a vulnerable population like children and adolescents.
Safety is always paramount.
Absolutely.
Especially when dealing with developing brains.
Right.
And there are still some unknowns about the long-term effects of CBD use.
That's right. Thorough safety monitoring throughout the trial and long-term follow-up will be crucial.
It's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
But the potential rewards are significant. If ZYN002 is successful, it could transform the lives of individuals with Fragile X and their families.
Right.
It's definitely a program worth watching closely.
I agree. It represents a novel approach to treating a challenging condition.
Right.
And the initial data is promising.
Yeah.
But we need to wait for the phase 3 results to see if those early findings hold up.
We've covered a lot of ground in this segment.
We have.
From the intricacies of the serotonin system to the potential of CBD for treating Fragile X. Yeah. It's clear that Harmony Biosciences is pushing the boundaries of scientific research and exploring innovative approaches to tackling some of the most challenging neurological conditions.
And with their strong financial position and their experienced team, they're well positioned to make a real impact in these therapeutic areas.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to one of the points you made earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned that Harmony is developing a potentially best-in-class Orexin 2 agonist for sleep-wake disorders. We talked about how orexins are crucial for regulating wakefulness.
Right.
But I'm curious to learn more about the science behind these agonists.
Sure.
Why they're so promising.
So orexins are neuropeptides that act as signaling molecules in the brain. They promote wakefulness, alertness, and arousal. And as we discussed earlier, many cases of narcolepsy are linked to a deficiency of orexins. Right.
So the brain isn't producing enough of these wake up signals, leading to excessive daytime sleepiness.
Exactly, and that's where Orexin 2 agonists come in. They're designed to mimic the actions of orexins, essentially stepping in to provide those missing wake up signals.
So instead of just suppressing sleepiness. With traditional stimulants, they're actually targeting the underlying cause of the problem.
That's right, and because Orexin 2 agonists work on a different pathway than stimulants, they may have a lower risk of certain side effects, like addiction or cardiovascular problems.
That's a huge advantage for patients.
Right.
But there are already some Orexin 2 agonists on the market like Suvorexin and Lemborexin.
Exactly.
What makes Harmony's drug BP1.15205 potentially better?
So remember when we talked about potency earlier?
Right.
Well, Harmony is claiming that BP1.15205 is significantly more potent than existing Orexin 2 agonists based on preclinical data.
Okay, but why is potency
so important in this case?
Well, higher potency means you can achieve the desired therapeutic effect with a lower dose, which can which can lead to fewer side effects and better tolerability.
So it's not just about being stronger, it's about being more precise.
Exactly. And in addition to its high potency, BP 1.15205 also demonstrates excellent selectivity for the orexin 2 receptor. This means it's less likely to interact with other receptors in the brain and cause unintended effects.
That's reassuring. So they're aiming for a more targeted and refined approach to modulating the orexin system.
Right.
But they're still in preclinical studies, right?
That's right, yeah.
Have they shared any data on how effective this drug is?
They presented some preclinical data that suggests BP 1.15205 is effective in promoting wakefulness and reducing sleepiness in animal models. That's encouraging, but of course they'll need to confirm those findings in human clinical trials.
Of course.
But it definitely sounds like a program worth watching.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries of innovation in this space.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about their work in rare epilepsies, specifically those DEEs we were discussing earlier. You mentioned that they're developing two drugs that target the serotonin system, but in different ways.
Right. So EPX-100 is a broader 5-HT2 receptor agonist, meaning it activates a range of these receptors. And this approach seems to work well in some types of DEEs, like Dravet syndrome, based on the data they've shared so far.
They even highlighted a zebrafish model, where EPX-100 showed promise in reducing seizure activity.
Exactly. They're claiming that this zebrafish model has a 100% positive predictive value for EPX-100, meaning that every drug that worked in the model has also shown efficacy in humans.
Wow.
Now, of course, preclinical models don't always translate perfectly to human trials, but it's still an encouraging sign.
It definitely adds to the optimism around EPX-100.
Yeah.
But what about EPX-200? How does it differ from EPX-100?
So EPX-200 is more selective. It specifically targets the 5-HT2C receptor, a subtype of serotonin receptor. By honing in on a specific receptor, they aim to fine-tune the drug's effects and potentially minimize off-target side effects that might occur with a broader approach.
So they're looking for a more precise way to modulate serotonin signaling, potentially leading to a better safety profile.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how they're exploring these different strategies to target this complex system.
It is, and remember, EPX-200 is still in the pre-IND stage, so it has a long way to go before it reaches patients.
Okay,
but the early data suggests that it could be a viable treatment option for Ds.
This all ties back to their overall strategy, which seems to be about identifying areas of unmet need, and then taking up a multi-pronged approach, to develop innovative therapies.
They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're diversifying their pipeline and exploring different scientific approaches to increase their chances of success.
It's a smart strategy, especially in the unpredictable world of drug development.
It is.
Now before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to make sure we touch on their program for Fragile X syndrome. This is another area with a significant unmet need. And their drug, ZYN002, is a unique approach using as a synthetic form of CBD.
So Fragile X is caused by a mutation in the FMR1 gene, which leads to a deficiency of the FMRP protein. This protein is crucial for synaptic plasticity, the ability of neurons to form and strengthen connections.
And without enough FMRP, the brain has trouble adapting and learning effectively, which contributes to the intellectual disabilities and behavior behavioral challenges seen in Fragile X.
Exactly. And that's where ZYN002 comes in.
Right.
While the exact mechanisms are still being investigated, preclinical studies suggest that CBD can modulate several pathways involved in brain development and function that are disrupted in Fragile X.
So it's not directly fixing the genetic defect, but it's trying to work around it.
By influencing these downstream pathways, you could think of it that way. And one of the key pathways that CBD is thought to influence is the endocannabinoid system.
Right, the same system that their Orexin 2 agonist is targeting.
It's fascinating how this one system is involved in so many different brain functions.
It is. The endocannabinoid system is incredibly complex and plays a crucial role in maintaining homeostasis in the brain.
And in the context of Fragile X, by targeting the system, they're hoping to improve the communication between neurons and enhance brain function.
Precisely, and there's some preclinical evidence to support this hypothesis. Studies in animal models of Fragile X have shown that CBD can improve cognitive function, reduce anxiety, and even reverse some of the structural abnormalities in the brain associated with condition.
That's incredibly promising. But what about human studies? Has ZYN002 been tested in people with Fragile X? Yes, they've completed a phase 2 trial in adolescents and young adults with Fragile X, and the results were encouraging. They found that the drug was safe and well tolerated, which is always the first hurdle, and even more importantly, they saw significant improvements in several key areas, including anxiety, social avoidance, and hyperactivity.
So it's not just about boosting cognitive function. It's also about addressing the behavioral and social challenges that they can be so debilitating for individuals with Fragile X and their families.
Exactly. And those aspects of the condition can significantly impact quality of life for both the individuals and their families. So the potential impact of this drug is huge.
They're now moving into phase 3 trials to confirm these findings in a larger population.
Right. Yes, their pivotal phase 3 trial called Reconnect is enrolling approximately 200 individuals with Fragile X. They're evaluating the efficacy and safety of ZYN002 compared to a placebo.
This is a crucial trial to watch. If it's successful, ZYN002 could become the first approved treatment for Fragile X syndrome. But as we've discussed, clinical trials can be unpredictable, and there are always challenges.
One challenge is the heterogeneity of Fragile X. There's a wide range of symptom severity and individual responses to treatment, which can make it difficult to design trials that capture the drug's effects accurately.
They'll need to make sure they're enrolling the right patients and using the most sensitive outcome measures to assess the drug's impact.
Exactly. And they also need to demonstrate that the benefits of ZYN002 outweigh any potential risks, especially given the vulnerable population they're targeting.
Safety is paramount, especially when we're dealing with developing brains. And there are still some unknowns about the long-term effects of CBD use.
That's right. Thorough safety monitoring throughout the trial and long-term follow-up will be crucial.
Well, it's clear that Harmony Biosciences is taking on some of the toughest challenges in neurology. They're not just developing Me Too drugs. They're exploring novel approaches and targeting areas where there's a real need for better treatment options.
I agree. Their pipeline is diverse and ambitious, and their commitment to innovation is evident in their research programs.
It's going to be fascinating to see how these programs progress in the coming years. The data readouts from their clinical trials will be key inflection points, and we'll be watching closely to see if they can deliver on their promise.
I'm with you on that. Harmony Biosciences is a company that's making waves in the world of neuroscience, and their work has the potential to transform the lives of countless individuals.
And that's what makes this field so compelling. It's about pushing the boundaries of scientific understanding and translating those discoveries into therapies that can make a real difference in people's lives. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and engaging. And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring the world of science and innovation.